everyone. I'm Abigail. This is Ethan, and welcome to another Two Kids interview.
Today we are interviewing the New York Times bestselling author Jack Gantos.
Mr. Gantos wrote the Rotten Ralph series and the Jack Henry series.
He won the Printz honor for his book Hole in My Life.
He was a National Book Award finalist for Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key.
Then the sequel Joey Pigza Loses Control won a Newbery Award on him.
And his book Dead and in Norville won the Newbery Medal.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with such good readers and such articulate young people. I write for good readers, and in my mind, I would be writing books for you.
Thank you. Daniel Handler, aka Lemony Snicket, told us a couple of weeks ago when eavesdropping, always have your excuse of what you were doing ready in advance. What's your best snooping advice you can give us?
That's pretty good. You know, Dan Handler is pretty good at giving advice. Most of his characters drop dead, so they must be taking some pretty good advice from him. I would say that the best part of snooping is to walk right up to somebody and say, hello, I'm really interested in you. Why don't you talk to me for a while? Instead of snooping, just to ask for a conversation.
You wrote a book giving kids bright advice about keeping a journal. When you wanted a diary as a kid, your mom said, no, diaries are for girls. How'd you get from there to here?
Well, that's a lot of mileage from there to here. So I have to say that that I was pretty determined to get a journal, and you can pretty much turn anything into a journal. In fact, you can take any book, any published book, and if you have really small handwriting, like I have really small handwriting, you can write between the lines of other people's published books, and you could turn them into diaries. And I know that the writing then has to be, you know, sort of like ant-sized, but it can be done.
Nice.
Yeah, and then they don't look like they're anybody's diary. You know where they are. They're on the shelf next to a bunch of other books, but nobody would ever know it.
How much of being a great writer is being critical of your own work and being willing to change it?
Oh, I think that, you know, you have to be both bold in your writing and write what you think is the best possible line, using the greatest possible words, going in the proper direction of the characters or the landscape or the action or the internal life or the dialogue. And you try your best to get everything right. But we know that you don't get everything right the first time. So for me, I would say when I read a book, I would have at least 50 rewrites, 50 significant rewrites. And where I'm taking it apart and putting it back together differently and taking it apart and putting it back together differently, that sort of thing. So I think a person has to be willing to be self-critical and also be willing to listen to the criticism of others and respond. Doesn't mean you have to be bowled over by it. It doesn't mean you have to change anything, but it does mean that you have to put yourself in a non-defensive position and take the advice as best
Makes
you can.
sense.
You've
Yeah.
written a lot of sequels. When writing a sequel, did you ever wish you had done something differently in an earlier book?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. Because now you're trapped. You've written the one book and you can't rewrite that book. So when you're writing the sequel, you cannot change the history because it's already in the other book. So that book, the first book of a sequel, has to be really cleverly thought out so that you don't trap yourself. You want that book to be able to open worlds rather than shrink worlds. So, you know, you got to be pretty good about that and thoughtful.
Maybe if I ever publish a book that would be set up for a sequel, I should write that book and then the sequel and then publish both of them.
I think there's a great deal of wisdom in what you've just said. And I think some of the people that understand that they're going to write sequels kind of outline in their mind from the very beginning of the process. And they kind of look over the horizon and think, what would these characters do in the next book and the next book? And they might outline a whole series of books with the major themes, the major actions, the major characters, the brick and mortar part of the book, and get that in shape, and then go back to the beginning and start to fill it in and really write it. I think that would be a lot of wisdom right there.
Thanks.
Hmm.
A lot of authors, their characters are good kids that get thrown into trouble. Your characters often cause the trouble. They actually remind me kind of my brother. What were your thoughts with that?
The trouble, my troubles. I think for me, trouble is such a great action. It's such a great issue in a book because you have in trouble, you have the stuff that you really want. You have exterior action and you have interior trouble, which is emotional action. So you get everything in one bundle. And I think trouble like any sort of major emotion or any major situation really causes you to have that interior exterior activity going on. And when you're writing about it, shifting back and forth, I think that that's what you want. You want something that engages as many possible aspects of a book that you can, so that you're describing things, you're getting dialogue in it, you're getting the action in it, you're getting the emotional action in it, you're getting the possibilities in it. And so, you're taking so many pieces of reality and trying to weave them together simultaneously so that whoever is reading it gets a very full picture.
You are an author known for getting reluctant readers to enjoy reading. What does that mean to you?
Well, that means a lot to me. I think people should read, and uh, I highly recommend reading. I love reading, and I'm sure I would not be a writer if I was not a reader. Now, to get people reading, I try not to sort of stoop to conquer. In other words, I'm not trying to write the easiest book possible. I want to write a clever book. I want to write a thoughtful book. I want to write a book with action. I want to write a book with information. I want to write a book that makes a reader stop in the middle of a sentence or at the end of a sentence and go back and read that sentence again and go, what does that mean to me? How does that open up my world? How does the reader just pause the book and look into themselves and see something new appearing because of that character, or something new appearing because of the action or an idea? And that engagement back and forth. It's not just a one-on-one, like a book and a reader. You stop and it's thoughtfulness going on all the time. And that's what you want. You want the big picture.
When doing a school visit, what was the most meaningful interaction you've had with a kid?
Or library visit?
Well, I have to say that they're all pretty meaningful. There's one thing that happens just about after every author visit, when the room clears out, whether it's the gymnasium or the classroom or the auditorium, no matter where it is. But there's always some lingering kid. One, maybe two, maybe three lingering kids. So you might have just had a conversation. You might have just been on stage and talked to 400 kids, 500 kids, 1,000 kids, sometimes more. But at the end of it, when you're packing up You're getting all your stuff back together. There's like one kid just hanging around, and they want to ask you that special question. They want to know something. They want confirmation. They want the gift of exchanging ideas with somebody that has been there. In other words, I am, and they want to be. And I want to be able to hand that baton off to them. I want to be able to say to them, you can do this, you know, and give them that sense of not necessarily urgency, but agency, that they, if they continue on that path of bookishness, they'll get the job done.
What is your process when putting a book together? Do you read the end before the middle, or do you put it together in order?
I think every book seems to want to make its own situation. So I have to say that I love language a lot. So I like writing entire passages of landscape or descriptive language. And I just like getting my language together, like build the room before I start putting people into it. And you always have to, of course, be saying to yourself, well, where's this going to go? But sometimes I forget where the book is going. And sometimes I just want to make the book beautiful. I just want to make the language lovely. I just want to bring image to it. And I want to go off task. I really don't like a book that stays on task all the time. I like a book to take me to another room. I like a book to elevate my thinking. I like a book to go outside. I like a book to travel in thoughtfulness as well as in, the physical landscape in which the book is projecting. So I just like the whole kaleidoscope of what can take place while you're reading. And I think the author is certainly the instigator of all these possibilities. And a great reader picks up on those possibilities, and then they take them to another location in their own mind and heart. It's pretty great.
I'm sure you know a lot of other authors from conferences and events. What was your craziest or funniest experience with another author?
Oh, wow. Some authors that are really just funny. They're funny. Just they can't not be funny. They can't not be clever. They can't not have a good time. Those people that you just like standing next to because they are living life at such a luscious pace and enjoying it so much, and everything is so interesting, and they're just not downers. They're people that lift you up. And I have to say that one of the people that I could definitely depend on if I was ever in a blue mood, if I was ever feeling gray on the inside, if I was feeling doomed and beat up, all I would have to do is run into John Sheska. And I think if I ran into my friend John Sheska, my mood would instantly be picked up, because that guy he's got something special. He's got heart and soul, and he's clever, and he's funny, and he's nice, and he's everything you want in a human being.
Nice. Can you give us your thoughts on the increase in book bans?
I mean, it's very easy to come up with an opinion on book bans. You don't have to reach very far within yourself to know that book bans are draconian. They should not be in place, and that anybody that is going around banning books really has bad intentions. Somehow they're taking the power of beauty or perfection or ideas away from you. They're stealing from you, and they're steering you in a direction they want you to go into, rather than allowing you to judge for yourself. And we know, because we're good readers, we can judge for ourselves. You read a book and you go, boy, that character's pretty rotten. That character's really foul. But people like that on the outside. This is how you navigate in the world. It's how you choose your friends. The people that want to ban your books also want to ban your friends. They want to, ban how you think. They want to ban everything about you. They want to cage you. And we know that this is not a democratic attitude. And we live in a democratic country where people can make their own decisions.
Favorite. Can you tell us exactly where you were and your reaction when you found out you won the Newbery medal?
No,
Really?
let's see. I have a little bamboo garden outside my house. And I don't know, the day before, I have a little statue of Buddha in my bamboo garden. A nice little concrete Buddha or carved stone Buddha. He just sits there and looks happy all the time, thoughtful. So the day before, I knew the Newbery was coming up, and people talk. There's some talk and a little chatter about what books are being considered. And I knew I was being chatted up. So I was passing by. I think I'd gone to the grocery store, something very typical. And I came in and I saw Buddha. I just put my hand on Buddha's head and I said, Buddha, if you have an extra thought in my favor, I'd really appreciate it. And that was the day before. So the next day I was up and then the telephone rang and it was like 25 people screaming into the telephone, that that was the committee, the Newbery committee. And they were just as excited as I was. They were as excited to give as I was to get. And I knew these are my kind of people. That's where I was. I was at home. And then I was called on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me for that. So I did that Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me show. And that was really funny too.
What writer has had the most influence on you?
Oh, I read all kinds of books. I know I write books for young readers, but most of the time I'm reading books I think are pretty magnificent, and then they sort of pass through me. And then what I take out of them, then I write sometimes for young readers. So I'm sort of like a filter of everything I read. But I would say that if somebody said you've got to go on a desert island, and what book are you going to take? That old question people ask you. I'd say I'd probably have to take Herman Melville's Moby Dick. I love Moby Dick. That book is so good. It's so rich. It's so powerful. It's got such great language. It's got imagery. It's got imagination. It goes beyond the page, beyond language. And it always lives inside of it. Really a good book. And I'd say Edgar Allan Poe is like that too. Once Poe gets into you, he never gets out of you. There's some writers that just like own you, and you want to be owned. That's the beauty of it. I love them. They love me.
Are you writing anything right now?
Yeah, I was just working on it earlier today. I'm writing a book that's killing me. It's like some books you wake up and like the words are just like flowing out, the ideas flow out, and you're like, oh, I'm a genius today, And then some books just wake you up in the morning in an ugly mood. The manuscript is already annoyed with you. And so you sit down in front of it and it's like, like you could just see the paper wrinkling up, like it's getting ugly on you, just wrinkling up. And it's looking at you like, I dare you to improve on the blank page. I doubt you can do it. That moment where even a blank sheet of paper can beat you up. So, so the book I'm writing now is called Before I Was a Book, I Was a Boy. So I wrote it once. I was like, yeah, I got part of it. Now I wrote it again. I'm like, yeah. I wrote it again. I started today. I was like, I got to write this whole book again. I'm like, I'm just beginning to learn what this book is about. Sometimes you don't really understand the complete complexity of a book until you get to the end of that manuscript. And then you're like, you walk away like a week later, you're like, I didn't get it all. I missed that opportunity. The plot line's wrong over here. And you start thinking about it. You start entering the book. And now you're like, taking the pieces apart. And then you see some of the things that you missed or that you don't like. And you think, that's it. So I'm sort of raking it apart again. And I'm just gonna make it a little crazier.
Finally, it's time for Turbo 10.
10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Oh my word, yes.
Number 1, what is your favorite phrase?
My favorite phrase, my favorite phrase, my favorite phrase, my favorite. I know I've got favorite phrases. I know they're all in there. Okay, I'm pausing on that. I'm pausing on that. I knew this psychiatrist, and he'd always say, if you don't know the answer, just pause. Go to question number 2, and we'll return.
Number 2, what is
Yeah.
one subject you'd love to learn more about?
Hmm. I think really, I'm really disappointed that I'm not something like a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon. I really love it. I had a doctor friend, a great surgeon, who would allow me to sit in on surgeries. So I would dress up like a doctor and I'd get on a big stool, and he was famous for his heart operations. And then he'd open the chest, crack open the chest of the patient, right? And I'd be leaning over like a vulture staring in, and he would go in and fix this guy's heart. It was incredible. And then they'd sew him up. But you'd have to stand there like that for 4 hours. No coughing, no sneezing, no going to the bathroom. You just had to stand there and stare. It's great. It was so great.
No
Okay.
thanks, you can leave me out. Bye-bye.
Hmm.
Number 3, what is your
Yeah.
go-to snack food?
Number 3. What's my what?
Go-to snack food.
Oh, go to snack food. Go to snack food. Go to snack food. Go to snack. What did I eat today? I think cheese. I really love cheese. I
Cheese is
love
awesome.
I love a good piece of cheese. And I had cheese with sliced apples today. And I think those go together perfectly.
I've had cheddar parm. It's so good.
Number 4, what was your favorite book growing up?
Oh, my favorite book growing up. Ah, what was my favorite book growing up? I had this maudlin little book. It was so maudlin, but it was it was called and this is very, very early in my life. It was called The Littlest Cowboy. And it was about this lonely kid that had this big imagination. He imagined himself as a cowboy, and it was all about his imagination. And when I was growing up, I just thought that was the greatest little book in the world.
Number 5,
Yeah.
if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Wow. Where would I go? I'm totally fascinated. And I'm fascinated with islands. I love the islands, and I lived in the islands. And I think that if I could go somewhere, I would really like to go to Antarctica. Antarctica. I'd really like to go, I mean, it's more than an island naturally, but I would love to get down to the bottom of the country and up to the planet and up to the top of the planet.
Interesting.
Number 6, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Being able to control everybody's thoughts and words.
A good one.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, and you know what then? The
Could
whole
basically
planet would be called Planet Jack because I'd be controlling everyone.
And nobody besides you would be named Jack or everybody.
Well, that's a great thought. I think you could go both ways, but you drive yourself nuts if everybody was named Jack.
Yeah.
Hey Jack. Hey Jack. Hey Jack.
I know that'd be too crazy.
Number 7. What was
Yeah.
your favorite cartoon as a kid?
My favorite cartoon. My favorite oh, who was it that was I always I always thought that Snoopy, like the Charlie Brown and Snoopy stuff, was always just like the coolest stuff. It
It
was really
still
good.
is.
It was
It
good.
still is. I
Yeah.
read the entire Snoopy Touchdown book and reviewed it.
There you go. Good stuff. Great
Num
characters.
Number 8. What is your favorite rainy day activity?
My favorite rainy day activity is pretty much the same as my everyday activity, which is I get up, I eat breakfast. Yeah, I eat breakfast. I deliver my coffee to my wife in bed first, and then I go and eat breakfast. And then I get ready, and then I live in Boston. Right out my window is Boston, and then I walk to either one or two libraries. I either walk that way to the Boston Public Library and I go into Bates Hall and I sit down and do 2 hours of first draft writing, 2 hours of second draft writing, 2 hours of reading, and 2 hours of goofing off. And then, or I go to the Boston Athenaeum, a great, great, great old library. And I climb 115 stairs and go up to the top floor. And I sit down at a desk and I do 2 hours of first draft writing, 2 hours of second draft writing, 2 hours of reading, and 2 hours of goofing off. And then I come home. And rain or shine or snow, I do it. In fact, one time it snowed about 4 feet and I clawed my way to the Boston Athenaeum, which took me like a half an hour, maybe even longer, but it was perilous. And then
Hasn't
I
it
got
like
there and they
hasn't it snowed
closed.
hasn't it snowed like 70 feet here before?
I don't. Not when I was around.
I think it snowed here like 7 feet before.
Where are you?
Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo. That's a great town. I spoke in Buffalo many times. I love how they number their schools. You know, like I remember like speaking in school number 49 or something like that.
Oh, I'm in school 50.
You are your neighbor.
Number 9. If you could
Yeah.
have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Through visitors?
3 dinner guests.
Oh, same thing, probably. Who
It
would
can
it be?
also be a fictional character.
They can be fictional? Oh, great, 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 great. Well, so wow. So I would take any character from Poe, any character from Melville, and I would mix that up with another writer who writes really interesting stories, Paul Bowles. And Paul Bowles, a great American writer, lived in Morocco for many years, really wrote wonderful, wonderful novels and short stories. I take some of his characters too, but I would choose those characters and they would make a good dining room table set. And you know, it's like it's like when you read some books and you see the characters coming together, like Alice in Wonderland, you know how those characters come together. I mean, that's just incredible, isn't it? Yeah. So I'd like to put those kind of together.
Hopefully, it's not the whale that shows up.
Hopefully.
Number 10.
Oh, maybe.
What is the best piece of advice you were ever given?
I was ever given.
Yep.
Um, I think I was when I was a kid, I was very dutiful and duty bound, so that whether I thought something was right or something was wrong, I was duty bound to do it. Even if I thought it was wrong, I would still have been told to do it. And I think that there came a point in my life, like all of us, right? There comes a point where you're taking advice and you're listening to yourself. And now, as you grow older, that self is bigger and wiser and more thoughtful and able to pass judgment even on yourself. And after a while, this advice over here begins to sort of shrink. And this voice within yourself becomes strong. And that's the voice I want to hear when I need advice.
Yes. You were awesome. Thank you so much for doing that.
And thank you so much for spending this time with us.
We can't wait to read your future books.
Well, I can't wait to write them. I mean, that's the thing. I appreciate you choosing me. I hope you have a great day. And I hope one of these days I'm in Buffalo and we happen to meet on a corner somewhere.
You too. Bye.
Bye.